Well, one day I was really stressed out. I had picked up, moved 3,000 miles away. I let my former career go, and I was in business for myself, but not by myself. And I was really stressed out, and I really needed to talk to somebody. I needed to speak with somebody who could help me just understand what I was going through and make sense of everything and give me some guidance. And I really didn't want to talk to just a regular person. I felt like I wanted to talk to an intuitive person. Back then they called everybody a psychic. I think it was like during the Miss Cleo days. And I picked up the phone book. Yes, we had phone books. And I opened the phone book up, and I opened it up to psychics. And there were like a gazillion of them on this page, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna know who I should call? So I closed my eyes and I just I just pointed my hand down, and wherever it was gonna land was who I was gonna call. So it landed on this particular company, and I called the number, and it was a recording, and it said, hi, you've reached blah blah blah. And they said that we're having a psychic and healing fair this weekend, and we teach meditation classes and yada yada yada. They went through the whole gamut on this voicemail, and I was like, oh my gosh, Becky, I found it. This is what I wanted, because I felt like I needed to learn how to meditate, because I felt like I was dealing with so much stress that I needed to learn how to meditate. And then they were having this psychic and healing festival. I didn't know what all that was all about, but I felt like, okay, this is where I want to go. I need to go here. So I went that Saturday, and I ended up not leaving for 6 years. I went there, they did a healing on me, they told me a little bit about myself, and that's when I learned that I too was intuitive and I was empathic. And at that time, my empathic ability was my highest ability. But I had other abilities as well, but they helped me to identify them. And I was like, really? And they told me some different things. They asked me questions like, they said, do you ever talk to people and then after you talk to them they feel better? And I was like, yeah, but I thought that was normal. And I told them, when I was in high school, they used to call me, well, no, they didn't used to call me, I used to call myself Dear Abby. I'm probably dating myself by saying that, but yeah, they used to call me Dear Abby, or I used to call myself Dear Abby, because my friends used to come talk to me about their issues, and we'd solve them together, and they feel great. But one thing that the people at the Institute brought to my attention was that I might not have felt so great. So I would go through times where I just wouldn't feel so great out of nowhere, and I had no idea what that was all about. And they shared with me that because I was empathic and a healer, I was healing them with my words and healing them just spiritually or energetically, just through conversation. But I, in turn, was taking on their energy, and I wasn't releasing it. So here I go talking to John and Paul and Sally and Judith or whoever, and they would feel great. They'd go on their merry way, and I'd be feeling like, I would be taking a little bit of junk on from everybody else's trunk and adding it to my own junk, So eventually I would feel down and didn't know why, and then I'd purge, with tears or whatever, and then I might feel better after that. But that was around the time where I learned that I was intuitive and I was empathic. I was clairvoyant, but I had to work on that a little bit more to hone those skills. And then over the years, all of the gifts just grew and enhanced. And some of the gifts, I don't even know what they're called, different things would start to happen, different times a year. I would notice something just would happen. Oh, I could do that now. I could do that now. I remember one time I saw this movie Elektra. I love that movie. And Jennifer Garner, I love her. She's awesome. And Elektra was sitting there, and she was taught by her master how to meditate. And while she was meditating, she would actually be able to see what was coming. So she would be able to see when, people who were coming to get her, she could see them coming down the road, so it was like forewarning for her. So I was like, wow, I wonder if I could do that. And I remember saying that and going to the chiropractor's office, because I do a special practice that is also very healing called network spinal analysis, and I used to go 3 days a week. So I went to the chiropractor and I was lying on the table and I was doing my breath work, and I decided, let me, I always kind of meditated on the table. And I heard James coming, he was my chiropractor, and I heard him coming up the back steps. And so I was like, I wonder if I could do what Jennifer did. I wonder if I could see him, with my eyes closed. And I saw this person walking by my office, and then I kind of saw what he had on, and then he kind of went through the space that I was in and went out the other side. And so I was like, wow, I can't wait to see if he looks like what I saw in my vision. I can't wait to see if he had that on. And after I got up, I asked Judy, I said, where's James? And she said, oh, he went out the other side. He'll be back. I couldn't wait till he got back. When he got back, I was like, get out of here. He had on the same thing that I saw in my vision. I was like, get out of here. And then later I learned that my spirit, I guess, goes out and learns. And so me asking the question, ooh, I wonder if I could do that. Then the next thing you know, I was able to do that. And this happened with many different things. People would learn different healing techniques and they would tell me about them. And I would say, ooh, I think I could do that. Or I would go to a healing event and learn a new modality, and I would just know how to do it. I would be there with, tons of other people. I've been at places where there have been hundreds of people in the same healing classes as me learning techniques. I'd be in places where there were 20 people. And it was like weird because I would just know what to do. I would know what to say. I would know where to place my hand. I would know what to do. And I had no idea why. And then, later people kind of gave me some insight as to how that was happening with me. So it was, this journey has been very, very interesting, just learning about my gifts and honing them. Later I learned, and this was just a few years ago, I learned that I actually had the gifts when I was a kid. And some other gifts that I had when I was a kid, and I had no idea that I was experiencing these things that weren't really in real life. Well, I shouldn't say really in real life, but whatever. But that's a whole nother story, but I hope that answers your questions. So when you have a session with me, a private session with me, I can honestly tell you it's different every time. No, I don't think any one person experiences the same thing as the next person. And people come to me for many different reasons. People come to me because they want to find their soulmate. They come to me because they want to release somebody, some mate. They come to me because they want to get a job. They want to sell their homes. They come because, they have situations with their house and they have no idea why they can't sell it. I've worked with people on their homes, walking through their homes and clearing the spirits out of their homes and helping them to communicate with what was in their homes. People just come for very different reasons. People come because there was a death in the family and they're trying to get over the emotional pain. People have come because they have physical pain. I have many people come because of physical pain. And it's been an interesting journey working with all different walks of life. I've worked with people with mental health illnesses, bipolar, schizophrenia, and they have all been interesting and different. And I really can't tell you what your session with me would be like. Some people come to me and they come for one thing and they get something else, but it's all for their highest good. They may come to me because they want their mate, but we end up going back to when they were in their mother's womb and doing some healing from womb to present, because the reason they don't have their mate is because they're filled with trauma from womb to present. I had one lady, she was depressed and I was her therapist, and I had to be very careful as a licensed therapist in my work. Because I really couldn't mix, well, I shouldn't say couldn't, but, I just had to be careful as a therapist. But I had this one client, and for some reason, I knew that she would be receptive. I don't know what told me to open up and share what I do with her, but she had a hip issue. I forget what it's called, necro something, where her bones in her hips actually were eating away at each other, and it was deteriorating. The bones were just deteriorating. So she was going to need a hip replacement, both hips. And when I met her, number one, she was depressed, flat. She had no affect, no expression. She when I asked her about life, one of the things she said was, I don't even know why I'm here. She didn't get into God. And, she expressed how she felt about life. It just sucked to her, and somebody else could have had it because it was just some crap for her, and we talked. I was in her home for, I think, an hour and 45 minutes, and my sessions are supposed to be 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, so I was in her home for quite a while, and I walked her through a visualization. And as I walked her through this experience, I told her some of the work that I do, and I asked her, could I touch her? Because sometimes I need to touch your body, and I always ask if I could touch your person. So I asked her, could I touch her? I touched her along her spine at times. Sometimes I did not touch her, but I touched her her aura or her spiritual body, and it was interesting. I just worked with her, and we did the visualization, and after we finished, she opened her eyes and she said, "Oh my God, I feel alive again." And I looked at her, I was like, wow. It was like night and day. The person who was there when I went there was not the same person that was uncovered after we did this visualization to release her crap that she had been holding on to. And then on another session, we worked on healing her pain. And we did I call it a timeline healing, because I go from your womb to present. Sometimes I even go to past lifetimes. But we went from womb to present, and I stop every time there is a trauma or every time I'm heard to stop. And then we deal with whatever comes up in that age bracket. And so it was interesting because I was, we stopped several times. And we actually uncovered molestation, rape. We recovered a lot of wounds that were in that area where her hips are deteriorating. I was like, wow, this woman between, childhood to just 18 had so much sexual trauma. No wonder her hips were running away, and that's what I said to her. She laughed, but it was like, God, no wonder your hips are deteriorating. You have had all these wounds. One of the molestations, she didn't even remember until we uncovered it in the session. So, those type of sessions take a little bit longer because you never know what you're going to bump into. And, you uncover molestation, you have to deal with that. And it's not like we can keep on moving on. We have to deal with what was just uncovered and help heal that situation. So with this type of healing that I do, we heal along the way. And it was amazing because after she got up from that session, And she actually participated. She created her own visualization. It was amazing. And after we got up from that session, she said, oh my God. She said, you know, when you were working on me, because I went over to her body and did some body work as well. She was like, oh my gosh, it felt like the pain that is deep in my pelvic region. She said it felt like it was pulling out to the surface, like you were drawing the pain out from my body. I was like, wow. You know, so I just thank God for what he does through me, because I can honestly say it is not all me. I've had a lot of training, I really have, but when I get in there with clients, it is not about my training. It is about the Holy Spirit that just takes over and does what needs to be done. So I'm led to do whatever is for your highest good every time we have a session. So I hope that answers your question. So what's the difference between the coaching style that I have and others? You know, I'm not going to say that anybody else's coaching style is bad, because I have used all different types of coaches. I have used coaches who are not intuitive coaches. I really have. And you know, I would have coaches on retainer, and I would, you know, pay like $2,000 or whatever and have a few sessions with them, and they would help me with specific tasks. And I found them quite effective, and I've done that a lot of times, not just once. I've done that many times through the years, and I almost often have a coach of some sort. I have different coaches right now. Right now I have a coach with my social media. So I have a social media specialist who coaches me, and I also have a coach and a company that guides me with my career. And who else? I have spiritual coaches, intuitive coaches, and I consult with astrologers, Vedic astrologers. So I get guidance from all different types of coaches. What makes me a little different, I do personal coaching and business coaching, so I am able to give the same kind of guidance that another coach could give. However, with the abilities that God has blessed me with, I'm also able to see through crap. So we can kind of cut through the nonsense. Not to say that another coach couldn't do that, but I do have the ability to be able to see through a situation. I'm able to see what the blocks are. Like, why aren't you having what you desire? You know, because, you know, a coach that is not intuitive or hasn't tapped into that side of them, they may be able to tell you, okay, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, but then you don't do it. You're like, well, you know, why is it that you're not doing it? Sometimes you need someone to help you overcome the block so that you can do what we're asking you to do. Because we can give you a roadmap all day long. You can find a roadmap through a Google search, you know, but why am I not implementing the roadmap? Like, if you're overweight, you know, why are you overweight if you don't want to be overweight? Well, there are plenty of recipes out there for not being overweight, but what is the situation? What is the block that keeps you from accessing that place where you go to releasing the pounds? If you can't find a mate, if you can't find a job, you know how to do all the activity, or you could go figure it out. You know, you could go to an employment center and figure out how to get a job. If you want to get a government job, you can go to the employment center and figure that out. You can go to Google and figure it out. You can figure out how to get a job, but why am I not getting it? You know, why every time I go to an interview, I don't get it? Am I going for the wrong type of jobs? Is what I'm going after not in alignment with my highest good? These are things that I can help you with. I can help you figure out where it is you should be going, and maybe why it is that you keep hitting your head up against the wall. And not to say that your life is supposed to be flawless without bumps and bruises, because you're supposed to have bumps and bruises, because those are the things that help you to grow, that help you to build those muscles mentally, physically, physically to build those muscles and that strength so that you can go to the next level, so that you can be catapulted into your higher heights. So I'm not saying that working with me will prevent you from having any kind of up or down or struggle. You still may have your struggle. I just might be able to help you to grow. I said the word grow through your struggle with ease, you know. And I know at one point I was growing through a struggle, and I remember releasing my house. I had a nice home. My daughter calls it a mini mansion, whatever. I had a nice home, and I had to release my home. And I released my home over a year prior to me physically releasing my home. And I remember when I was physically releasing my home and I was having an estate sale, and one of the young ladies that I worked with, she said, I cannot believe you've been going through this. You've really been going through this all this time. Wow. And like, you were my leader, you were my rock, and you were going through this. So, you know, I have learned how to grow through a situation with ease and grace, so much so that other people are shocked as heck when they see that I was going through an adverse situation. So although you might still have to go through your journey, I will help you grow through your journey in a better way, you know, help it to feel a little bit better. So to me, that's just what makes me a little bit different. I can help your road be a little bit better, help you clear your path so that you can have what it is that you desire. And, you know, I'm not just going to tell you what you need to do. I'm going to help you to go get it. The retreats, what are they like? I remember one retreat that I did. This one girl, she said, I felt like I was a furniture mover. She said every 2 seconds I was moving my chair here, moving my chair there. She was joking, but you know, the retreats are very interactive. They're not, you know, you're not going to sit in your chair and listen to me all day long. You are going to move your chair. You're going to get on the floor. You're going to stand up. You're going to get up in front of everybody. You are going to come outside of yourself. You are going to heal. Everyone that comes to my events, they heal something. You know, they release something. They become aware of something. Not everybody leaves with the same experience, but they all leave with something better that has happened in their life because of the experience. Some retreats or workshops, I may interact like workshops. I might interact if I'm doing like a meditation or visualization workshop. I guide you through the exercises, but I also do healing work at the same time. So I'm not just guiding you through a meditative situation or doing breath work. I'm also doing healing work. So I might touch you. I remember one time I did an event in Dallas, and I walked through the audience as I was guiding people through the experience, and I touched different people. And I remember 2 people out of that audience. I remember one lady, they both were like, how did you know to touch me there? And I'm like, I don't know. But, you know, I'm just led to touch you. And then that might have been the spot that I needed to touch you at. So I touched these women in different places on their body. And the pain that they were having in their body was released upon the touch, which was amazing. And all I do is say, thank you, God, you know. So some experiences are like that. So my meditation classes are not, to me, a normal meditation experience. You're going to get a lot more with the workshops than you would expect. And the retreats, you will definitely get a lot more. They are very intensive. They are very impactful. There is a lot that you will be doing. Everything is interactive, because it would bore me to sit there and talk a hole in your head all day long for several days. I would bore myself. Okay? So they're very interactive. You're doing activities, you're doing healing exercises, you're doing group exercises and individual exercises. And then we have retreats where you actually get my healing work. So I have the tables out, and you're on the tables and people take turns being on the tables, and I do the work on your body. And so those retreats are amazing as well. We have retreats that are in exotic locations, and we have retreats that are in regular hotel in different areas of the country. We have small workshop type retreats in my office, and we have home retreats. We do retreats in people's homes where you pay a small fee, you get 10 people over, and we do some healing work, and we customize it to what the group that's coming actually wants to receive from the event. I do intuitive work sometimes. And I shouldn't say sometimes, because the intuition is always on. So you would get intuitive guidance at the sessions. You would, because it just comes out naturally. So if you ask me questions, you're going to get some intuition that comes out. I don't necessarily like readings, usually when people just want a reading, I usually send them to somebody else that I might go to when I want some intuitive guidance, because I really, really like doing the healing work. And when you come to me for a healing, you get readings anyway, because you're going to get intuitive guidance anyway, but it's not just a reading where I'm just answering your questions and giving you intuitive guidance and things of that nature. So that gives you a little bit of information about the retreats, the workshops, and readings. What you get, in a little session with me. All right, what is my most memorable experience with a client? Let's see. I have so many that I just love. They're so amazing. I've had scary experiences that I will not talk about. Okay, so I had a client a couple years ago, and 1 year ago. Is it one? A little over a year ago now. She came in for one situation. She was having some emotional situations going on. She wanted to address some things. And while we were here, as I explained what I do, she learned that I could work on physical stuff too, because I sit with you first and we talk. And so we worked on some physical things with her body. And she had knee issues. She said she has had chronic knee pain for years. I can't remember if it was 5 years or 8 years, but she's had chronic knee pain. She would get knee injections every few months, and it was just a mess. And when the cortisol or whatever it was wore off, then she was in pain again. She was telling me how she walks up steps. She would walk up the steps 1, 2, and then 1, 2, she couldn't walk up the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, or down 1, 2, she would have to stair step and kind of climb her way up the steps while her knees were in pain, walking around. And my office is down a flight of steps. So we do the session, and then she goes, wow, I think my knees feel a little better. And I was like, oh, really? Because you know what, in the session, I think we were in session for like a little over 2 hours. And I think I forgot that we were actually going to be working on the knees. I just worked on everything, and then she brought up the knees. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm glad that they feel better. And she said, I can't wait to walk up those steps. And I was like, okay. And she left. And then later, I checked on her. How are you doing? How are your knees? Oh, they're fine. And then a couple days later, how you doing? How are your knees? And her daughter, who was also a client, said, my mom said, what knees? Those knees wasn't hurting. And she called me Rorree. She said, thank God for Rorree. So that was one of my most memorable experiences. And after that, she had that first session in November. And then she called me 4 months later and she said, Rorree, I'd like to have another session. She didn't explain why. I was like, okay, cool. So we scheduled it. She came in and she said, well, the pain started to come back. And I said, when? And she said, it was like maybe a week or 2 ago. Okay. And I said, well, you know what? Maybe what we'll do is meet every 3 months, and maybe we'll try to head the pain off until it dissipates permanently. And she said, okay. And so we did the session, and then I kept checking on her, and then I had it in my calendar, 3 months, and I checked on her. No, I'm good. I'm not going to come in. Okay, cool. And then I had some specials. Okay, if you want to come in, I had free clinics. Come on in and get some touches. She was like, I'm good. And then I saw her daughter, like maybe a year later. And I said, how's your mom? How are those knees? She said, Rorree, those knees don't hurt. I said, what? A year later? Get out of here. So that, I just thank God for what he does through me. That is just so amazing to me, that this woman that was having cortisol shots in her knees on a regular every few months came to me twice, and she hasn't been back in over a year. To me, that's amazing. And that's one thing that I like about what I do. I like it better than being a traditional therapist. When I was a therapist, the clients had to come to me every week. I was like, oh my God, really? And I was, I wish I could have just done what I do with those clients so that they didn't have to come to see me every week. But it was bad enough that a client that I described earlier with the hip issue, the psychologist that was over me at that company, he said, you can't work with people and treat them so fast. She might think you're a faith healer. And I said to myself, yeah, that's what some people call me. But anyway, it's been amazing. I love what God does through me. I love the effects that it has on people. I love when people have what they want. There was this one young lady, she had 8 homes she needed to sell. And she was like, oh my God, the market's declining. I'm not going to be able to sell these houses, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's do some work on those houses. So we did some work on the houses. All 8 of those jokers sold right away. I was like, wow, here we go. And so it's just amazing what can be done, what God does through me. And I'm grateful, and I don't know, I don't know what else to say. I'm just grateful, and I'm blessed. Well, thank you all for listening to this interview. I hope you got some good information about what I do with Totally Rorree International. I do help people to identify what their situations are, what their blocks are, because sometimes you don't even know what the heck is going on that's preventing you from having something. So I help you to identify your blocks, and then we go in to release them, and then we heal where they were, because you have that pain body there, and it's just sitting there creating physical pain in your body because you never released the emotional pain that you had. So I help you to identify, heal, and release the blocks that might be in the way of you having what it is that you desire in life, whatever it is, whether it be physical, whether it be spiritual, or whether it be monetary, whatever, whether it be a mate, whatever it is, something might be preventing you from having that. So I help you to clear the crap and open the road so that you could have what it is that you desire. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Totally Rorree channel. I hope that the clip that you just watched helps you to enhance your life in some kind of way, because it's my truest desire for you to create the life that you desire, for you to have that abundant life that you want for yourself. So click the subscribe button so that you could never miss any of the tips that we have for you on our channel. And don't forget to click the link in the description box or the link on the video so that you can receive your free gift. And lastly, if you feel that this video could help somebody else, even if it could just help one person, please share the video on social media. And the last thing is, I want you to remember that you deserve to live the life of your dreams. So stay tuned. Peace.